Okay, so I mean, just so many points. I mean, I think to go to the point Alexandra just made, and which Ken Smith, Marshall McLuhan's famous phrase from the '60s: "Think global, act local." Sometimes it's easy to love humanity. It's the person living next to you have problems with. I think do we have I think we have the responsibility to make sure that the environment we're operating in within our own touching distance is as inclusive as possible, and we have to to use Ken Smith, be inclusive. And to go out and make that happen. I mean, that's what allyship is. Allyship is not the aspiration or the bullet points or the PowerPoint. It's people's lives being changed at the end of the day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a favor of everybody, because we've been going for we're going for 2 hours now with Neil. We could bring another 15 minutes, and then I want to call it to a halt in 15 minutes, if that's okay. Purely because I've got another one stacked up after that, and I just want to take some time to do that. Are we going to be having this conversation in 2044? Are we going to see change? Or is this something basically, this has been the way humanity has been living for the last 5,000 years. We've talked about, how hard it is to have organizational change, societal change. Are we trying to change intrinsic human beinghood? And if so, what chances do we have of making that happen? So let's say 2030, 2034, 10 years from now, because let's face it, 10 years ago, 2022 was not a long time ago. I mean, let's start again. 2012 was not a long time ago. 10 years ago was not a long time ago. 10 years is going to go like that, bang. So in 10 years, are we going to be in the same conversation? Yeah, Neil, let's bring you in, sir.
Yeah, no, thanks, David. If I could sort of go first, because actually I do have another appointment now that I'm going to have to run off to, and it allows me just to make some concluding remarks. I mean, I think there's a real risk that we've got to be really active on this. I think we've got to pool together there's many ideas that have come through for many pathways and many walks of life, and it's about from getting more people into the security arena to drive that diversity. It's keeping more people in because they see real progression and opportunity, particularly opportunity as their lives change around them. Not least of all, we've heard about mums, but also dads. And actually, I've got HR just trying to sort of connect with me, and I know the HR leaders often take his kids to the swimming pool. That's great, but also that was a working from home boost that was disruptive in this last period. But maybe not so disruptive and maybe a bit more debilitating if you're on the front line and you need to be at your specific workplace. You don't get that flexibility. So maybe now you need to sort of reinvest there. And I think if we step back one iota on any of the items that have come back, we will fall back very rapidly to some very negative elements around the world. And look how negative the world is. Post-COVID, I think we've got more challenge, more complexity. Here we are, we're saying, well, surely we're a society that can move beyond conflict, and we have more conflict, and there are some conflicts that we choose to ignore and feel that we can ignore. It's just this Russia-Ukraine one is maybe a little bit less of one that we can ignore, but actually there is a lot of hurt, hardship, inequality, insecurity, and actually we've got to bring all sorts of skills and to Alexandra's points, this wide cognitive diversity, but you get that through all sorts of lived experience at the table. So I will keep pushing for my teams across Unilever, which allows me to reach out to different communities across the world where there's real challenge, and I will give more thought to how we engage positively, bringing third-party providers up. Lee, it sounds like you are a very engaged and active business leader, and not least, I'm sure, wider than just the Mexico environment, but that is a hard operational environment, and there are some great female security leaders in that area, and actually who can really cut their teeth in that environment and be fantastic in wider roles across the world. So I think we've got to keep our foot on the accelerator, David, to ensure that we're not talking about this in 2044.
I think you're right. One step back and you get pushed backwards. And of course, what we're seeing now the likelihood is over the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years, we're going to be seeing some significant socio-economic pressures. The world is a tough place. I mean, as you said, as you alluded to, Neil, the world can tend only to deal with one story at a time. At the moment, it's Ukraine. But there's some real deep felt issues. And I think we can see how quickly you can lose the progress being made, how quickly it can swing. And once those pressures come into play, I mean, we didn't think that Russia was going to be invading a European country and then doing the horrific things it is doing. And yet, bang, we're there. Let's bring you in, Lee, and then we're going to go around the table. I am going to try and finish, if it's okay with everybody, at 15:15. I'm then going to see how we can go, until then. So let's bring everybody around the table. Neil, 2.25 hours out of your time is much appreciated. Thank you very much. I'll catch up with you later. All the best.
And I've really valued hearing from the team. Thank you for the opportunity, David. I think quite a few of us are linking in as we speak. So
I'll send an email around to everybody as well afterwards. All the best to everybody. Thanks, Neil. Cheers. So let's go around the table. Lee, let's bring you in. You had your hand up.
Yeah, extremely encouraging words from Neil. And I think the key here is about momentum, right? If we went backwards, or if we didn't continue with the momentum that we've currently got, for me, it's all about not just the continued momentum, but how can we accelerate where we're at right now? How can we really, you mentioned again, and we talked a lot about disruption. I think we really need some kind of disruption within our industry. Now, this will sound strange, but for me, there's been a lot of positive elements that came out of COVID for us, right? I am a genuine ambassador, advocate, and champion of the hybrid model that we have right now. And I love how a lot of my teammates and peers around the world have actually really flourished within home office and have really created brands from being at home from the last 2 to 3 years, just online. And it's been amazing for me. So I think that what we need to do is we need to step up the momentum. We probably will still be talking about this subject in 10 years' time, but I think we will be talking about it in different aspects and in different ways. And I am positive that we will be talking about it and championing it, actually, how far we've come and how far we've come together and what magic we are creating because we've now really understand. We talk a lot about ecosystems, atmospherics, and environments, and it's really understanding one another. And and again, talking about provocation is how many of us really do work with our female counterparts. I would challenge some of the chaps in the room right now to say, well, we're on here, we're talking about women in security, we're talking about allyship, but when was the last time you actually did a project with one of your female teammates? Or when did you go to advice from one of those ladies? Do you really value them? We talk about it a lot, but is there really some conviction in your words, right? Actions do speak louder than words, and I will leave it there because I love to throw down the gauntlet.
Danyetta and Jav, I look forward to hearing your comments on people you work with and males in certain situations, working with certain issues, whether they do actually support you. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. Just one point, and just came up to me now about how fragile this is. I mean, I don't know about you, Danyetta, and others, but I look at, for example, the American debate on a woman's right to choose to give birth or not, an abortion, and the criminalization of those activities. And you think, man, that is a very, very fragile carapace, that can be broken very, very quickly. And if there's one thing that we've learned is that history goes in cycles. It just goes in cycles. But thank you for that, Lee. Danyetta, do you have any males who you feel are supporting you and working with you on projects and listening to you for advice?
Absolutely, from the beginning. And I think that was something that was as a recurring theme as we went forward throughout was that, we are in the industry, as Neil and I think several others have alluded to, where the room is mostly male. So it means so much when you're in that environment. And, you know, I'll speak for myself as a woman. Sometimes you come in and you feel like, wow, do I really belong here? You know, they're sitting down talking about something or relating in a way that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. And it means everything to have someone come up and say, not only that they want to include you, but they value you. And I was just, you know, giving kudos to Lee for saying that, because really at the end of the day, when someone values you and says, hey, you know what, that was a great way to design that system so that the security could work. And we're going to take up that point, and that's how we're going to do it going forward. All of that is very much reaffirming and very much valuable to women, and that helps us understand and help our voices as we go forward in this industry. And oftentimes it takes a colleague, both either male or female, to be honest, who can stand in that gap and be able to be reaffirming of what you know, and you know, the value that you're bringing to the organization. I don't want to keep using the same word, but that was kind of a trigger for me, because that was one of the things that I've heard over and over again, and was very instrumental in my own career, was to have someone to say there's value here. And I think that that's so important, whether you're male or female. But I think especially when you're walking into an environment where you are maybe the only female there, to have your male colleagues come in and provide that reassurance is very helpful.
And it doesn't have to be a big deal, does it, Danyetta? I mean, sometimes just somebody comes and say, hey, yeah, well done, that was good. You know, or
right.
You're doing all right, you're doing all right, well done.
Right, good point.
And
good point. Or if you're in a, you know, like he was mentioning, if you're on a project, if you know someone is, you know, for whatever reason, they might have been overlooked, to say, hey, you know what, why don't I bring Danyetta in on this project?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Just very, very simple ways to be allies. And that, like I said, that could be male or female, but it really makes a difference to just be considerate and to think about how do I include and how do I value what that person is bringing to the table.
And of course, what we forget is that I'm talking about us here, we're now the powerful people. You know, we've done our 20, 30 years. We are that powerful person that we wish to have helped us 20, 30 years ago. We're moving on. Okay, Jav, let's bring you in, then we'll bring in Nathan, Ken, and we'll call it a day. Jav, let's bring you in.
Okay, thank you, David. Very, very quickly. So first of all, your initial question, which was in 10 years. So here's my benchmark. I'm going to see how many women are security bosses, because I won't be appeased as a person. And I think none of us in this virtual room, would be appeased by just looking at sheer numbers of how many women we have in the security sector. How many are bosses? How many are decision makers? Because that's a testament of the organizations or employers or other people's trust in their capability. Once you place, you know, that level of responsibility in their hands, that's when you demonstrate. So I'm looking at boss, nothing less than that. No second in command, no third in command. So that's going to be my benchmark. But at the same time, I want to say that men also bring so much to the table. We don't have to say it, but it's good to acknowledge, because we're women and we're not exclusionists. So we would like to, I'm very open to, you know, hearing male perspective, and I do see so much value that men bring. So it is not about obviously displacing men from any, you know, future careers or, you know, promotions and whatever success in the sector, but it is really about building that culture where capability counts. And capability does not come in one form. It has so many different dimensions. If we're not aware of a certain dimension of capability, doesn't mean it's not capability. And when I'm talking about capability, the last point I want to add is it's very hard to ignore and to brush aside a real capable woman. She will rise to the top. Nothing will stop her. Give people opportunities. So our job is definitely to provide those opportunities. The ones that are really committed and are capable, they will make it. Of course, we have to, you know, create a conducive environment, but I guess that's for everybody, for, you know, all genders. So that's because I've been with ActionAid for 10 years in this particular position. I'm always the counsel, of course, be it the CEO or the board chair or the country directors or whosoever, of course, because like I said, it is the capability, the past experience, how you help them through one crisis to another. And that is that cannot be ignored. That cannot be brushed aside.
Cannot be brushed aside. Cannot be brushed aside. Thank you, Jeff, as always. Nathan, bring you in. Ken after that. Nathan, come on in.
Sure. I think there is one aspect to all this which a lot of people don't consider in these conversations, and that is the leadership of companies. Because when you look historically at many of the leaders of companies, like for example, Steve Jobs and Walt Disney, they were paramount. They are titans, and throughout our history, a lot of companies are led by such men. And we as a society, especially in the West, we put men like that on a pedestal. But when you look deeper, people like Walt Disney was very much against women in the workplace. So this opened the door to a very uncomfortable conversation where we as men, if our leader of our companies were like that, and there was a kind of like an unspoken rule that women should not be allowed in the workplace, would we have the courage to challenge those leaders? Would we stick our neck out? I personally would, but it's things like that. Those are hard questions that a lot of us will have to ask ourselves. Are we willing to challenge such people to fight for real change?
I think what happens is historically, first of all, you have to fight for it, and then it becomes the accepted norm. I mean, there's issues around sexuality, race, language. Now,
No. It's more than that.
Years ago,
sometimes it comes down to just a single person at the top, and the challenge is: are we willing to risk our lives, our careers, to challenge that one person to change all this? That's a challenge.
That is a challenge, and it's one that when one faces that, then you make your decisions. Nathan, as always, thank you. Great to have you on the panel, and thank you for your contributions and the work you've been doing and the stuff you've been putting in the chat. What we'll do is, if you can get in touch with Marcus, we can spread that word around. The networks. Just drop Marcus, and we need to expand our connections anyway. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Ken, final word to you, sir.
Yeah, I think Nathan there touched upon it, and so did Lee and many others. I think it's cultural. Like, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's that same with that great business guru. That if you've got a positive culture, you got an innovative and healthy culture and workforce, well, then people talk and change happens. Like, I was just thinking on Monday, look at the, this is not to do with the security industry, but just look at the Boston Marathon. On Monday, the Boston Marathon, it was 126th Boston Marathon. And it was the 50th anniversary of when the actual, it was the 50th anniversary of when women were allowed to run. And it wasn't until 1972 that the Boston Marathon allowed the females to run in that race. And at that time, only 8 females ran in 1972. On Monday, 12,200 females ran in that race. To just show you that change over 50 years. It's progressive, no doubt about it, and there's a paradigm shift happening. And one of those 8 ladies who ran in 72 ran on Monday, and she was 75 years old.
Opening the health insurance marketplace.
They want to talk to you.
Yes, so I think it's cultural, and there is a paradigm shift happening. It's slow, but it starts internally, from the top down, bottom up, small steps forward. And I think it's, like we've all said here, it's all about having this conversation, even though it may be uneasy to have with certain individuals. And as well, Alexandra touched on it as well, about there are males out there who feel threatened just because of this conversation. And I think and Lee is a big advocate of that, we should not have our silos. We need those silos to come together so we talk about these things and accept their viewpoints and perspectives. And over time, they may change. Over time, they may not change. But we need to have those conversations. We cannot have them in their corner and us in our corner and not talking. We need to communicate. That is, as you know well, David, you do tell us all this. It's all back to communication, isn't it? Communication. Sitting down and talking about this face to face and not through emails or texts. It has to be vocal. It has to be face to face or over conversations as such. Otherwise, it gets lost in what the message was, or in the understanding of the reading of the message, and it turns into a spiral of tit for tat. So just back to cultural. That's what I take away from it. It's cultural. But that is
it's a good way of finishing, because of course the famous phrase is culture eats tactics and strategies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The culture is the oxygen you breathe, and if the culture is wrong, either it can be polluted or it can be toxic. But if the oxygen is polluted or toxic, then you die. You can't do anything else. And so we've come to the end of almost 2.5 hours of non-stop discussion. Every moment of which has been fascinating. Every comment has been fascinating. Danyetta, let's pass it back to you to sum up and finalize it, and then we get out of here.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone, especially those that lasted the entire 2.5 hours, but this was an absolutely wonderful conversation, one that is difficult but needs to be had, and I'm hoping that we're on the forefront of continuing and hopefully increasing the momentum around diversity, inclusion, and definitely when it comes to allyship and what that looks like and means. So I want to again thank all 4 of our panelists. I want to thank Neil, Lee, Ken, and Nathan, and of course our wonderful moderator who has lasted the entire 2 hours, Dr. David Rubens. Thank you so much for the insightful questions and engagement with everyone. So with that, we want to thank everyone, and we will see you next month for our next WIS ISRM meeting.
Good. Jav, thanks to Jav, of course, as Jav and everybody else who came on, and thank you to Danyetta. It's nice to know that you've done something which has made the world a slightly better place, and these last 2.5 hours have made the world a slightly better place. I believe that, and so do we all. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Thanks all.
All right.
Take care.
All right,
All
bye,
the best,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks a lot.
Bye.